Sensitivity is intelligence. With grace and skill, you have abundance. Welcome to the Psychic Hour. Host Kelly Brickle is a psychic medium healer, numerologist, and teacher. Her passions are learning about the soul and energy. Whether it's through spirit, emotion, or vibrational numbers, there's always a pathway of information waiting to help. Now, here is your host of the Psychic Hour, Kelly Brickle.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Psychic Hour on WLTKDB. This is the Wednesday interview series. Welcome. We're going to be having Adam Bernstein on in a little bit and talking to him about his psychic mediumship abilities, his journey, and also, just about consciousness and how he sees the world, and from not only that intuitive perspective, but also from the perspective of, his own spirituality, his own unique energy as well. So, hello, Jessica. Welcome. Hello, everybody. And so, I kind of wanted to, not within the exact same vein, because it's really going to open up when we talk, but there's always a spiritual topic in discussion. And today I really wanted to talk about kind of how spirituality mirrors everyday life. And we've touched upon this in various facets before, but I think it's really important because whether you are, interested in spirituality, or it's something that you're ongoingly pursuing and developing and cultivating in your own life, it doesn't matter what the extent, there's always that crossover. And it really goes back to just the simplicity of how are you feeling? How is life going, right? And I think that's so important because, there's the stresses of our everyday life, and it's like, what do those mean to us? What do those mean to us? Is it something we participate in? Is it something that we let happen to us? How is our free will being enacted within our stressors in life? And we talk a lot about pivoting and changing. And these are all concepts that go together. Hello, Kelly. Hello, Tamara. Yes, it always is fantastic to hear from lovely people such as Adam. And please, as people are coming in, we'll be having him on in about 10 minutes. And towards the middle, later part of the show, we're going to be taking questions. So if you have a question for Adam and it's anything regarding spirituality, psychic mediumship, and these are questions about his life and his perspective, right? So we're not taking readings, but spiritually based questions, please pop them down. And if you pop them down early, they're sure to be read when the time comes. So I always give that hot tip out. But for, within our everyday lives regarding just utilizing our free will and understanding what little things life is saying to us, whether it's writing things down and like, I need to change this, I don't really prefer that, and integrating as we go along, or just saying, wow, I really don't like my day. I don't like how I start my morning. I feel stressed out, or it's too busy, or it's too quiet, right? Like I feel like dull in the morning or midday, or even at, dinner time or night. I don't like what I'm eating. Infusing that joy, because it's like spirit is like this, this holy fire some people talk about. And there's a passion with spirit, right? When people are healing or giving readings or they're helping, there's a smile upon their face. There's a joy within the heart. And usually it's like enacted by the wonder of spirit, of how spirit is guiding you, right? Or how God is guiding you. However you feel, the universe is guiding you. I really, respect everyone's individual spirituality and how they connect to it. But there's a spark within your heart, right? And you're like, I want to do this, or like, wow, just something came over me. And infusing that within your everyday, infusing that within your choices, your free will choices, infusing that within just the little things that sometimes we don't even think about. And that's how we infuse more consciousness into our life. And it's kind of funny, because the more you develop, if you're curious too, when you're energy sensitive, sometimes you're like, well, why did it work this time? And I was able to sense this and that. And, I felt very connected. And then another time, why did I just feel so disconnected or confused? Or why aren't the signs lining up? Rather, whether if you're pulling cards or you're getting signs from, things around you, you're hearing messages in different ways. You're trying to make sense of it all. Well, energy mirrors everything that we're doing. Spiritually mirrors our everyday life. And if you are just kind of not having that joy infused in your life, or if you're tired, or let's say you're overwhelmed, that's the state of your energy. And if we're overwhelmed constantly, or if, like, let's say we're just tuckered out, or we're just like, yep, life, yeah, it's going, it's okay, like the common, like, how are you? Okay, well, okay, at least we have okay, right? But it's just like, that's not the vibration of spirit. The vibration of spirit is actually quite, like, enthusiastic. It doesn't have to be like, whoa. It's just, there's a vibrancy there, right? And sometimes that disconnect is emotionally, because emotionally we're just feeling like life has hit us. Sometimes it's our mind's not even focused. I mean, that's why, we talk about meditation so much. Our mind's in 500 different places, all the different tabs open. And it's just like, how could you, you know, then tell your brain, I want just to focus on this. I just want to focus on spirit. If your brain has been accustomed to and trained, you know, to have 50 tabs open at once, that directive takes discipline, that directive takes time. Or, the change within your enthusiasm with life, it takes time. And to lean into that one step at a time with changing things and just going, how am I feeling? Do I prefer this? Do I prefer that? And honestly, all those little changes are huge, because they build and they shape your energy. And, even with, when people are doing readings, I find for myself, just from a perspective, someone who is energy sensitive and uses it in their everyday life, I find that if my mind's too busy, or I'm emotionally taxed, I have to do extra work always to lift up my energy, because I'm not in that neutral space always to receive. Okay, so it does take shaping our energy, and we do have to take this constant inventory. And a lot of people go, well, isn't that excessive? Like, isn't that a little bit much to always be constantly tuned into how you feel, or how another person feels, or how the environment feels? And at first, maybe it does seem like too much, but then the more you actually put awareness on your sensitivity, that's just naturally what it becomes. Does that make sense? You push yourself into that lane, because your objective and your consciousness goes, I want to be more sensitive. Wow, if I could only be more sensitive. Wow, if I could only hear mom and dad. Wow, if I could only have that direction in my life and I know where to go. Well, to do that, you gotta start to fine tune these certain things that are inside all of us. And it does take being a little bit more deliberate with checking in with oneself. And yeah, I always like to just keep the simplicity of, if you feel good and you're in a place of peace and calm, again, feeling good always doesn't necessarily equal good and calm, but it will help you get there. It's going to help you get there, because you're going to be like, I'd rather feel like this, and what do I have to do to return to that, and how do I maintain myself to feel a certain way? And it does feel good to feel like yourself when you've, you know reached a point where you touch your spirit, or you understand the beauty of another. You start to understand the possibility of the beauty within yourself, and being comfortable in that place, that's peace. And I promise you, it does feel good. So with every decision that you make, with shaping your life, I promise. Why am I saying promise so much? I usually don't say promise a lot, but I feel very invested and very passionate in saying that that is a compass that is a compass. Your feeling is your compass to knowing, and your knowing is going to guide you to your spirituality, your awareness, and it really is a daily check-in. It really is an involvement. And it's not these lofty concepts. The lofty concepts are a good time, don't get me wrong. Like, if you ever want to get philosophical, theoretical, or just experiential with people who have really dived into like what energy looks like and why are we all here, and we're going to dive into that with Adam. But it just starts with, how do I want to feel? What do I want to have? And what is no longer me? What's not my energy? And how am I going to maintain that? Because that's where I want to go. That's where I want to be. And that's the place you are to start giving. That's the place that you then are to start helping. That's the place that you are to start actually sparking your life beyond just your imagination, because you're then in the energy to be. It's no longer a dream, it's no longer a wish, you just are. And then it just ripples out. So, okay, we are going to be talking with Adam. We are going to be back in a second. And I love hello, sis. Hello, Tamara. And yes, thank you for your comments. I'm seeing them right now. We'll be popping them down. Oh, I'm clicking things apparently. But yes, we'll be back in a moment with Adam. And thank you for being here today. See you in a few. Hello and welcome back. Let's bring Adam in and give him a warm introduction. Hello, Adam.
Hi, and thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I want to give everybody an introduction to who you are. Adam Bernstein is an international psychic medium and channel. He was included as one of the New York area's top psychics in the books Psychic New York and Esoteric Guide to New York, and has numerous TV and radio show appearances. Adam also teaches a wide variety of spiritual topics and is an energy healer and Reiki attuned. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. The energy is very high. I'm definitely feeling it. Very changeable times, obviously, and we're really going, in my opinion, into the heart of the big changes now, November through February. So we've been talking a lot about that. So yeah, we've been preparing energetically, and it's interesting. You're talking about feelings and emotions and stuff like that. And that's just so important because so many people are just not aware of what they're feeling. And when you're not aware of what you're feeling, your feelings can be programmed by outside sources. So it's really, especially now, it's really, really important that we are in our heart. When we're in our heart, we're in our power, and then our brains activate. That's heart-brain coherence. So I know a lot of you know what that is. And I practice that every day. It's kind of become sort of my new ritual the last year and a half or so. And I'm just, even though it's a hard time and a lot of stuff's going to happen and we're going to see a lot, I'm really excited about the changes. And I know that might sound a little bit weird or off or sadistic even, because we know that unfortunately people are going to suffer and so forth. But this is what we've been working towards and what we've been preparing for. It's like a new earth, a new birth of consciousness, and the old is just not dying easy, basically. So I'm pretty excited, a little trepidatious about what's going on and where we're heading, but excited at the same time. And every day I just try to make it the best day of my life, basically. And I said that intention is part of my morning routine. So I have a spiritual practice that's basically 24/7. Even my sleep journey is part of it. So as strange, I add on, but the idea of be in our heart, then we're in the eye of the storm. And when you're in your heart and you're in your compassion, you can't have negative thoughts while you're in that space. You can't hold grudges. You can't blame other people. You can only feel compassion, gratitude, love, appreciation, peace, joy, and emotions like that. So people talk about stay in the eye of the storm and everything's changing. Well, your heart chakra, your heart center is the eye of the storm. So I encourage everybody to work on heart expansion, meditate with the heart, expand the heart, and do heart brain coherence. Look up Heart Math Institute or Joe Dispenza or Greg Braden. Those are, I believe, the 3 top sources of this practice that I'm aware of. And Dr. Joe and Heart Math Institute actually have empirical data, scientific data to prove how powerful and how necessary this really is right now. So anyway, that's how I'm doing.
Okay. So no, I'm feeling it and hearing you, and it sounds like you're saying, like, to me as you're talking, like, hey Kelly, we're coming up with a shift, and hi to everybody else, right? Everyone listening right now, we're coming up with this traumatic shift in life within our consciousness where we have to be in our hearts, and the tremendous potential of our hearts, like with Heart Math and Dr. Joe Dispenza and all the research, it's showing that there is so much potential and there's so much intelligence within the heart, and we haven't looked in that direction. And I'm a big feeler, but I do have to take additional time out of my day. And Adam, you have a very good practice. You talked about how you have day, afternoon, night, morning, right? Where you're checking in with yourself. And I have to remind myself, like, okay, I'm already feeling things, but I have to go deeper. I have to make adjustments. My energy is changing. The world energy is changing. It takes something different for me to be balanced now.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us are experiencing this, and we really absolutely have to be present and conscious in the moment. So practice your meditation, practice presence. Every time you think about it, just don't think, just be, starting with the breath, body, what's going on. And then, when we're present, then we access spirit. And, I met Kelly at Lilydale, so I can share a little Lilydale story. There's one summer, that for 2-3 days in a row, like for those of you that don't know, Lilydale is the oldest and largest spiritualist community in the world, I believe, being that spiritualism is largely an American phenomena. And during the summer seasons, they have public services where mediums give messages, and they allow people like myself that are visiting mediums but have credentials through spiritualist church to serve spirit and to give messages. So one summer, it's just like it was flat. It was like I wasn't getting it, and it was like the 3rd or the 4th day, and then it's before like the 5:30, I think, the 3rd or 4th day, I'm just meditating by Lake Casadega, just asking spirit, like, what's going on? They say, just be present. Don't make this a big deal. You're just trying too hard. Just be present. So I did that. I walked, and every step I was present with each step. I didn't, listen to the mediums. I just stayed present. I got up there, and then boom, like it all came through, like the names and the details, all that stuff came through from spirit. So, presence and being in the heart, that's the magic formula. That's kind of like our life raft that's going to get us through these emotional storms that we're floating on right now in this world, and allow us to be of service also. So it's not just enough to be okay. We have to be in our power. We have to be spiritual warriors and be okay, and be okay with what's going on and understand there's a higher purpose. And I'm a very empathic feeling person also, and I could either look at the world and just get completely depressed and bummed out every day. People are suffering, people are dying. I know people that were in the in the path of Hurricane Ian, all that stuff. Or I could be in compassion, and being in compassion is different than feeling sorry or pity, because when you're in compassion, you understand the bigger picture. You still feel and you still want to ease suffering, but you have an understanding that's different than just like feeling sorry or pitying. So we have to be in our compassion and be in our power. Basically, we have to be spiritual warriors, because if you're attracted to Kelly's work or my work, you're here for a reason. You're not just an average Joe or an average Michael or an average whatever. You're a light worker, a way shower, or maybe a starseed or an ascended master in your own right. So yeah, interesting time. But like I said, I'm I'm upset in a way because I just don't like what's going on in the world. I don't like all the programming, all the manipulation, all the fear, the fear that they're leveling on the people to control them. But at the same time, I understand it's necessary, and I really celebrate the changes. And hang in there, everybody. It may get a little worse, but it's going to get better. And the astrology is really, really active. It's been active for a while, but October, Mars is stationed. It's going to go retrograde. The election, you thought 2020 elections were messy for the Americans. Wait till 2022 election because Mars is stationing. It's happening during a lunar eclipse of all
Oh,
things in the sign of Scorpio.
no. Yeah.
No, no, I'm
Oh,
sorry, in the sign of Taurus. The sun's in Scorpio, the moon's in Taurus. What is Taurus? It's the structures, it's the financial structures. We're in USA Pluto return right now, or in other words, Pluto is right now in the same place in the zodiac that it was when the country was born. So Pluto takes, I think, 241 or 243 years to circle the sun. So anytime you have a return, it's like emphasizing the energy to that planet. So what's Pluto? It's regeneration. It's transmutation. It's really, really heavy, explosive energy. So this is our
it
first Pluto return, and it's hitting the second house of the country. It's in 26, 27 degrees Capricorn, so it's hitting the government. It's all showing in the stars and the numbers. And if you understand how to read, because spirit manifests, gives us a roadmap in the way the planets move, the way the numbers line up. If we know how to read that, that's spirit's way of telling us, hey, this is where the energies are moving. You've got to do something about it, basically.
I'd love to hear your perspective on that. I want to, emphasize this wonderful point you made too earlier, where you're talking about if people are listening, they're probably natural light workers because
Right.
they're attracted to this work, and you know, whether it was when you were young, you found yourself being an empath or like being very heart centered, but back in the day, it was awkward and you had to shift your energy. Well, you're naturally ahead of the curve and you naturally now are, I really believe, being called to have yourself step up and lead people to be more comfortable with their emotions because these people were just so in touch, but society was not you know allowing for them to be so much of the helper they were, so much as the compassionate individual they were, so much as stopping what they're doing to check in with others. And you're talking about we're coming up for some more bumpy rides and we need those people.
Yeah, and you may find that we're going to kind of go back before we go forward and back into that community-based living, depending on how far or how, intense things get. I mean, there's already food shortages. So if people are saying food shortages are coming, they're already here. And there's all this pressure to centralize power, centralize government, which benefits a minute few, but at the detriment of a great many. So we need to be prepared. It's possible that the lights may go out for a while. I mean, I live in the Catskill Mountains of New York. All I have to do is blow on the freaking power lines and we lose power. I'm in the office now in the city in Kingston, because I wasn't going to risk the mountain Wi-Fi on this interview. So I drove down to my office. But we may be without these comforts. There may be internet blackouts. There may be food shortages. Know who your local farmers are. If you know how to grow, do that. I always say prepare for the worst and hope for the best, because we can get an idea and a feel for what's happening. But honestly, I mean, maybe somebody out there knows exactly what's going to happen, but it's not me. I mean, I do predictions. Some of them come out better than others, obviously. But even Edgar Casey had a few misses also. So it's all about interpretation. All understanding timelines are fluid. So, we can change the timelines through consciousness. So becoming more conscious and aware and helping others to do that, that's going to shift. And once we reach that 100th monkey, then it's going to shift into a much more of a positive direction. So,
there's a lot of timelines going on. I like how you talk about the 100th monkey. As soon as so many people think and believe a certain thing, consciousness change. That 100th monkey. I want to ask you too, because I do feel like regionally the energy is so different. So I'm in California, and the West Coast, or at least California, has a certain vibe. I have family in the Midwest, so I go there often. The Midwest has a completely different vibe and a completely different just consciousness of people. It's been a bit since I've been over to the East Coast. I might be coming up this year, but I feel like things have been so volatile on the East Coast. I've actually been my energy has repelled actually even wanting to travel there because I feel so much unrest.
Well, where I live, I'm in the Woodstock, New York area. I'm in the Catskill Mountains, the Hudson Valley. Now I hear prophecies. I had my first awakening in 1978, so I was very active with all the stuff in the 1980s. And some of the natives saying the Hudson Valley will be safe during the earth changes. I believe it was the Hopi people or a different nation out west that was saying the Four Corners area will be okay during the earth changes. But yeah, right here, I mean, it's the Hudson Valley. It's a fairly affluent area. We don't see like what the rest of the country's seeing. I mean, yeah, there's the shelves are a little bit sparse, but they're not empty like they are in other areas. And people are anxious, but this is also a spiritual hub here. A lot of spiritual people, obviously a lot of musicians and artists come here, and they tend to carry a spiritual vibe also. So right here, we're good. People are upbeat. We have our little networks. We're connecting. Now you go down closer to New York City. I can't say the word on the air, but it's a bleep show down there. I'll put it that way. And and people are anxious, but they're scared, and they're programmed to be scared, because when you're scared and angry, you're easy to program. And it's like, take all the rights away, take the food away, take the comfort, bring the people to their knees. It's like, oh, sure, take our rights. As long as you can save us, as long as we'll be comfortable, that's okay. We'll own nothing and be happy, fine. Bring on the Great Reset. Who cares? As long as our knights in shining armor are going to take care of us. But and I may be sounding a little bit like a conspiracy theorist. I'm really not, although I've been into conspiracy since the 1980s, but the 1970s actually. But this is kind of sort of an overgeneralization of the energy and what's happening. Basically, I want to say, yeah, I can attribute it all to human greed. It doesn't have to be like green aliens that are reptilians control it. Humans can do this all on their own. Now, that's not to say there are. I mean, I'm a star seed. I connect with other dimensions, so I know that we're not alone. And I think any intelligent, spiritual human being, well, hopefully I'm not insulting anybody, but I think most of us understand, how can we be alone? Build trillions of stars. I mean, come on. But we're part of from my understanding, we're part of a whole network of other races from other areas, maybe even interdimensionally. And I channel this group I call the Master Teachers, that are interdimensional beings of light, and they bring through a lot of information also. I mean, it's different than my mediumship work, because mediumship is evidential. This work is anything but evidential. But
It's true. Good point.
And the late Janet No Havoc, who just passed recently, who was one of my mentors, she's been with me a lot. She's kind of smiling. She's like, I would not react that way, Adam. She's saying in my mind. I was going to say, she'd be rolling her eyes when she knew it's like channeling like beings that aren't there, that aren't physical or whatever. If you know Janet No Havoc, I mean, I think she's one of the top 100 mediums in the whole country. I mean, she's that good.
Oh, she's fantastic, yeah. Some of the pioneers had to be very grounded in order to to work, right? So they didn't look always in those places the same way. But like, what are you like with the astrology feeling? With you were talking about the new moon, Mars in Scorpio, and the solar return. And I know anyone who's around 28, 29, 30 or older, like, they've all experienced a solar return and a Saturn return, excuse me. What am I trying to say? Help me out here. But but it's very it's very taxing. It's very stressful that time. There's a rebirth happening, and so there's a potential for so many good things to occur, but it's really the dark night of the soul at times. So tell me what you're seeing with like your predictions or what you have been channeling. And also, when I met you in like Lilydale, I found out that you were a numerologist. So if you've been looking into the numerology of anything, whatever you've been tallying and accumulating.
It's all telling a story, and I'll just tell you one thing about this that I have to give my friend and colleague Sharita Starr a shout out because she's told me a lot of this stuff also. But the last full moon that we had was at 16 degrees of what sign was it? Aries. The next 6 full moons are all going to be at 16 degrees of their respective sign. So it's 16 in numerology. Well, it reduces to 7, so it's Neptune ruled. Neptune's very emotional energy. But 16 in Chaldean numerology is the shattered citadel. And in tarot, for the tarot readers, key 16 is the tower card. So when you put all these full moons and there's other 16 energy, it shows that the tower is coming down. And during this 7-month stretch, and now Mars has been in Gemini for about 2 or 3 months. It's not going to come out of Gemini, I don't think, till May, because it slows down. It goes retrograde starting October 30th. In early January, it goes direct again. Mars retrogrades are pretty much has a similar flavor to Mercury retrograde, only about 3 times worse. I want to say it doesn't happen that often. Every 2.5 years for about 2.5 months. I mean, retrograde planets happen. We're supposed to go more inward. Mars is about energy action, but it can also be about conflicts and wars. So it's and the Tower card in tarot is also ruled by the powers of Mars. So we have a lot of emphasis on Mars. It's making a lot of choice aspects. I believe now to Neptune, although I don't have my ephemeris handy. Neptune likes illusions and delusions. Mars is very straightforward and to the point. Scorpio is very straightforward to the point, but very secretive at the same time. So, we have all these, it's almost like 3 different factions sort of closing in at once. And, it's like the awakening people are becoming more awakened and stronger. Those that want to prevent the awakening because the structure of the world will change. The people that benefit, if you want to call them the cabal or the elite, the minute few that have everything at the expense of the great many. They know that everything's energy also. They know hermetics. I mean, this country was founded on Rosicrucians or the founding fathers. They know a thing or two about energy, although it always scratches my head when I think about that they actually signed the declaration in August, but the birth of the country was July the 4th when they conceptualized it during a Mercury retrograde when it was opposing Pluto. It was like, these were Rosicrucians. How do they pick the worst time possible? And then, we're kind of in the return now. But as I'm saying that, Spirit's saying, well, they knew what they were doing because this is about freedom. This country is about freedom and about sovereignty. And right now our freedom is very limited. But that's what the country is about, and that's what it's built upon. But freedom comes at a cost, and that's just because history and humanity has been doing things for so long in a certain way that it's almost like in this lifetime when we have free will or a greater sense of free will, it's almost like we don't know what to do with it because karmically we never had that. Maybe we were a slave in one lifetime. Maybe we were indigenous and captured by the white man in another lifetime. Maybe we were royalty. We were slave to our riches and our position and our power. We never had free will. So when that's presented, people will subconsciously, energetically, or however you want to put it, act in a way or make choices in a way that restricts their own freedom, and then they wonder what's going on. They don't get it because they're not aware yet. They're not in their heart. They're not feeling. They're not in their spirit. They're not in their power. And the powers that be don't want them in their power because it's very bad for their business. If humanity awakens, it's going to change everything. It's going to be more fair.
Freedom, I mean, free will, and also just like freedoms that we have in our country, depending on what country you're from, all the individual people listening. Freedom is a funny concept. We have a lot of rights, right? But it's like, how free are we really?
How free justice really is just us. So that's the first thing to understand. The illusion of freedom, can be very attractive or whatever. You're free as long as you do this, that, and the other thing. And I'm not saying we don't need rules. Obviously, we need rules. We need guidelines. I feel like you're saying we need guidelines. We don't need like these laws that are ridiculous or whatever. But anyway, I'm digressing a little bit, but I do
Okay.
that.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
But you were talking about how November and December, things are going to get more rocky. What do you see happening, or even into next year with astrology and numerology and other things that you are aware of? What changes do you see? Because you're talking about like, oh, I'm quite worried because, there's the food supply, or I actually think people's livelihoods and homes will be affected even. You're talking about some things
Yeah.
like that.
So, the money, structure of money, all changing, based on astrology and other things. Structure of power, all changing, natural disasters increasing. I think a lot of this is economic, I want to say, a lot of the collapse. Then there already is a World War III happening. We're just not privy to it yet. And most war in present day takes place on the cyber battlefield. So it's a lot of it's hidden. But nuclear explosions, yeah, I saw it in the beginning of September in my mind. I saw that. And then all the news about, nuclear threats are back, or whatever. Some of it could be scare tactics, but, more tension in the world, and the elections, again, nobody's agreeing. There is some degree of election fraud. To what degree it is, I'm not 100% sure. I don't think it's quite what Donald Trump is saying, but it could be, but because I don't know. But what I feel like is that that there has been manipulation of elections all along, and that the objective from the powers that control the governments that want this duality, right versus left, all that stuff. I mean, in my mind, like the Native American meme that was going around, both the right wing and the left wing belong to the same corrupt, dirty bird in my mind.
Yeah.
But I believe they fixed the election in some way. I don't think it was Russia either, by the way, but they fixed the election in some way so that he'd win. I mean, it's unprecedented to be behind, 6 points in the polls, days before an election and win an election. I mean, that had never happened before. 2 points, yeah. 6%, no. But anyway, then because if you look at Donald Trump, he's the perfect figurehead to deepen the divide, create controversy, whether you love him or hate him, whatever your views are. I don't think anybody can deny that. That may not necessarily be a bad thing, but I believe that's what they wanted. And then he got too powerful, and I think they conversely, fix the election again. I mean, I could be wrong, honestly. It's just my own perception of things, but I think that he may have, technically won the election. I don't know that. I mean, the fact that almost 50% of the country wanted Donald Trump, that curses people out on Twitter, that behaves so much unlike a president, but the fact that half the Americans wanted him shows there's something very wrong with the political system. They don't want a political figurehead. They'd rather have somebody, that I think one of the appeals is that he's real. Like, he reacts, he gets angry, he curses. I think he's more relatable to somebody, that like like Joe Biden, where you can barely see like any movement in his mouth. You can barely detect an emotion from him,
I think,
basically.
yeah, people were definitely looking for something that they deemed to be not puppeteered as much. But
Yeah,
I think, you know,
exactly.
you have these swings, unfortunately, um, where it goes from moderate to extreme, or like, you know, left to right. And it's like, it's always just evening itself out with what the people want. Because so we swing in all these different ways with the people that we elect, and they represent certain, I guess, cries out from the people, but it doesn't really satisfy.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So again, we have to be in our power. That's the bottom line. And the more of us that are in our power, that are expanding and connecting to spirit and starting to feel who we really are and what our true divine mission is. Again, that 100th monkey experiment, that's for those that don't know, basically they taught a group of monkeys, I believe it's how to open coconuts in a different way using the water on an island. And they taught a group of monkeys, and they found that the monkeys on the other side of the island that had no contact started doing the same thing. But much to their surprise, they went to a neighboring island, and those monkeys were doing the same thing. And that's how powerful consciousness is. And depending on who you talk to, it only takes 1 to maybe 6% of people to get it before it has a ripple effect on consciousness. So it's not like half the people, it's just the 100th monkey out of 1,000 monkeys have to get it, basically. And that's what's happening. So work on your own awakening. It's contagious. It's a good virus.
It is. Yeah, good virus. That sounds funny. But yes, it's a consciousness is spreading,
Yeah.
and you know, so all the work that you do, Adam, I do, and that other people in this field, it undoubtedly just spreads. So if you ever wonder, you know, anyone listening, does what I do even matter? Yes, because consciousness spreads. We need more and more conscious people. If you can too, Adam, take me to, like, you know, you said that you really have been deep diving since 1978. That's one of the years that you mentioned. What were you doing before within your life? And how did you come into this work? How did you come into this interest?
Okay,
Psychic
that's an
medium.
interesting question because I was in college, my second year. This was my sophomore year. I think that was 78. I can't keep track. And basically, I was a meteorology student. I was studying science, basically. And, you know, as a child, now that I've broken through, remember before age 4, I was seeing spirits and energies. I mean, I could spend a whole show talking about things I experienced and thing, just as, a little snippet is by the time I was 3, I was so furious that I could no longer move things with my mind. I started throwing things and kicking things down. And my poor parents, they were good people. They didn't deserve this. but, but
The
1970,
limits of the body.
I was just riding my bike and I just got this flash of light and a second flash of light. And I feel I mean, it's a blurry memory, but I was just riding my bicycle. I was going to school in Oneonta, New York. And I just left a good friend, Paul Salvador's dorm room. And I just went on a bike ride. And so I was riding along and this happened. And then I felt for a split second, I was the one with the universe and I knew everything. And the first thought, and tears started coming down my eyes. And I think I yelled it out. Everything that I've learned is a complete lie. And now I need to learn the truth. And that's when I mean, I was actually started doing martial arts before that because I was a small kid with a big mouth. But but then after that happened, I got really serious about my martial arts training. I started doing yoga and I started to learn how to meditate. But I got very ungrounded also. And, I could go on. It's a really long story. But that was my first initial awakening. And it changed the whole trajectory of my life. And one of the things that started happening was that I would randomly get up and think about somebody I may not have seen for a month or two and invariably run into that person during the day and just see things that they were about to happen. And then I started to see auras and colors and stuff like that. And that by the way, is without LSD, just to make that clear. We're talking
It's
about the
very
colors.
possible.
And yes, that was part of my journey. I did dabble and experiment with all that stuff. And
That's the ungroundedness that you spoke of prior.
that was probably very much contributed to it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But you know, I was searching for answers and experiences, and 'cause I didn't know what happened to me. And I started to feel like there were earthquakes. And I'd ask my friends, "Did you feel that?" And they're like, "Adam, what are you smoking? Because whatever it is, we want that." But then later on, I realized, no, I'm feeling this emanation from the base of my spine. That was my Kundalini was starting to activate. But I didn't know what Kundalini was back then. You know, I didn't know anything about spirituality. I mean, I was interested. Anytime there's a psychic or a real witch on TV, I had to watch because I was interested and fascinated. But I didn't think I had any of these abilities. So that's when it began. That was 40 years ago. And in hindsight, and I've been feeling this for a while, I feel like I've been trained to be here at this time, to be, you know, a leader, like you were saying, and a way shower, a light worker during this time. I feel like, and it was not easy. You know, at one point I wound up in jail. That was a year after Spirit said I've gone as far as I can, and I have to go back into the world. And then I had a big heart crash, and then. But anyway, we don't have to talk too much about that. But I did wind up in jail
You're teasing good bits, Adam.
What's that?
I said you're teasing really fascinating bits about yourself. You're like, let me tell you this. Wait, I don't have to. We don't have to go into that. I'm like, I would love to hear it.
Oh, well, I mean, basically, I mean, I was very into the cannabis at that time, and it had to do with weed and stuff like that. I mean, I wasn't a criminal or anything. Well, in the eyes of the law, I was, but yeah, this was in the early 1980s. So, you know, that was 40 years ago. I definitely cleaned up my act a lot since my younger days. But that happened, and then I moved in and lived with my martial arts teacher for 6 years. I really studied, and then I met Amberella later on. She's a tarot reader. She's passed on in Oklahoma City. So I was with a friend in Norman at the University in Norman, Oklahoma, um, and he was living with a psychic named Anne. She was in her 40s. We were in our 20s, and I just got really fascinated with tarot. And she saw me peeking in on a reading, kind of looking around like that. The only time I'd seen that was in the James Bond movie. Yeah, that's the only time I'd ever seen tarot card. And one of times, she's like, "Come here," and she started to show me a few things. And she said, "You know what? Take these cards, take this book, you study it, and then I'm going to give you my tarot client because I like to do palm reading. I don't like tarot reading." I'm like, but you've done this before. Just trust." And so I spent 48 hours. I didn't even sleep. I studied the tarot, and I was just fascinated. And the first reading I did, I was thumbing through the book. It was kind of hysterical, but the woman was like, "Oh my God!" And it's the same thing, you know, with mediumship too. Like wasn't sure I could do it until I actually did it, and they were like, "Oh my God!" So mediumship started around 2000 or so. So my brother died in 98. He came to me a week later. I was camping out, and he came to me, and then a medium I was doing tarot readings by them, but not mediumship. And then to make another long story short, slowly but surely, I was getting more messages from the other side when I was doing my tarot readings. And then I was working at Quest Bookshop in New York City. That's part of the New York Theosophical Society, you know, Helena Blavatsky's organization. And I was getting really curious, and John Edward was coming on the scene also. And I'd heard of John Edward. You know, people be in the shop, and people be like, "You heard about this kid named John Edward? He's 16. He's doing the psychic fairs. He's amazing," and blah blah blah. So I'd already heard about him, and then, you know, in the 90s, and then he started a show. I think it was in 01, crossing over. You know, and he was still a very young man, and obviously extremely talented. And by the way, he got his idea for the show at Lilydale, apparently. From the message services, and he would describe how he got things. I'm like, well, this happens to me, and that happens to me. Maybe I am a medium. So anyway, I just was curious. And 4 years working in the shop, I never had anybody call and asking for mediumship, but somebody did. This gentleman called, and the manager looked at me and said, I'll take the reading. So I went back to the back room. I did my prayer and said, I don't care one way or another. I just want to know if I can do this work or if I should do this work. I kind of put that out there to my guys, and I had no attachment. And that's the key. I think if I had an attachment one way or another, it would have had a different outcome. But there's no attachment. I was open and happy either way. I said, either I'll do mediumship, or I'll just do psychic reading. I don't care. So I shook his hand. I get father. Okay. As soon as that, get father. The number 10 pops up in my mind. Let me see if I get, there are 5 things. Father, number 10, the image of an airplane, a sharp pain in my chest, and the letters REN. So he looked at me and said, well, my father passed 10 years ago from a heart attack. And he was like Middle Eastern. He had a long name, but it started with REN, and he was an airplane pilot. So I knew that I could do it. But I also had this attitude. It's like, so what? They're dead. That was kind of my attitude. I even watched, I got to, at the Queen Psychic Club, got to see the great Shelley Peck live, which is a treat. John Edward calls her his mentor. So I got to see her work, and she would go in the audience, she'd point, she'd get the name, she'd get the specific stuff. I'm like, well, this is great, but who the heck cares? They're dead. So anyway, so I got this. And then as I'm doing the reading, I started to feel that they had a very strained relationship. And I told him, look, your father's saying he's sorry, but you were a reflection of himself in his eyes. And that's why he was so hard on you. And this man just started to cry. And I was like, okay, Spirit, I've never done this before. I've got a grown man crying. What am I going to do? Basically, and Spirit just said, oh, lighten it up. So I talked about some family picnic or whatever. But then at the end of the reading, he shook my hand. He said, for 10 years, I've been holding on to this guilt and this grief. And 1 hour with you, I was able to let it go. So one lovely spring afternoon, Spirit not only showed me I can do mediumship, they showed me why you do mediumship, why it's so important. It's a healing modality. And
Absolutely.
that's its history. I've made thousands of connections since.
And that's there has to be a deeper reason for doing all this. Because it's like, I know it might sound funny to people, but it's honestly, what's the point? Why do you want to, some people want to, be a healer. Some people want to be a psychic. Some people want to be a medium or anything else. Tarot reader. What's the point? Well, why do you want to do what you're doing? What's the end result? Is it what's in your heart? I think it was great too how you're talking about, even when you were young, you said everything that I've been taught is a lie, and then you just felt the uncomfortableness. You talked about your kundalini energy rising, but this uncomfortableness, this rumbling in your body. And I think a lot of people are experiencing, that's a great metaphor for what's happening now. Everything has been a lie. I'm terribly uncomfortable.
I got that.
What am I really doing? What's the point of really doing anything? Well, you found your way with just the mediumship energy, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I found it, I think, earlier on, but I mean, I found my path, and then I found a teacher at Lilydale. It was Sharon Klingler. So I went to a class of 80 people, and some of them professional mediums. By the end of the 5 days, people were coming up to me and asking me questions about mediumship, and I've never really done it that much. So, I mean, it was like a natural thing. When we have these natural gifts, we probably bring them in from other lifetimes. And she's like very encouraging, and she trained me privately for half her fee, for a good 6 or 8 months. So she was really wonderful. And then I found other teachers, but I really felt the call to develop it. And the last part of the story is that my mom never was able to handle the passing of her firstborn, and she wound up having heart complications and dying 2.5 years later, basically from a broken heart. And I was like, that's part of our own personal experiences. It's like that kind of really brought me out of the mediumship closet, so to speak, and then just go more public. I think witnessing that experience was like, I need to develop this gift. I mean, obviously I have it. Somebody I don't even know. It's like, I mean, I think it was beginner's luck, or I think of Spirit just telling me this is what you're supposed to do. But to get 5 hits like that are that specific and on, I mean, Spirit's was obviously trying to get my attention. This is 21 years ago now.
And you're talking about how, even before the mediumship, with you having these aha moments and, really coming to know yourself. like you read tarot, and you did Reiki. And so what else have you been doing along the way since, because you said since 1978?
Well, I mean, in 1978, I mean, in the 1980s, I got into martial arts a lot. I was doing that. I had, in the early 80s, I'd learned tarot. So I had that, and I was doing readings for friends. Then 1993, I got I was actually, that's when I was in the book Psychic New York. John Edward was in that book too. No, it was later in the 90s. Before he was famous, John Edward was in the same book too. George Anderson may have been, and also there were a couple of heavy hitters in that book. But anyway, so I started to get some clients, and I got a job at a Wicca shop in the East Village called Enchantments, and I was doing readings and learned about Wicca and how to do white magic and spells and stuff like that. But also I was honing my skills as a tarot reader there. So I was developing that, and doing my martial arts, getting into different forms of yoga, lots of outdoor stuff, lots of stuff with nature, developing and fine tuning my meditation practice, and all that kind of stuff. And it said, I had that, that awakening to mediumship. Then I had another awakening around 2014, which was a full-on Kundalini activation. And I was doing Kundalini yoga. I still do that, and different forms of yoga, but I had to stop my practice because it was too intense. I couldn't sleep. I was sleeping 1 to 2 hours a night if I was lucky. So I had to stop my practice for a while, get used to this higher energy. So other than that, sitting in on circles and developing that way, and learning how to channel, that came a little later also. So I mean, a lot of stuff's happened. I feel like I'm still, in that process of developing, even though I do a lot of teaching. I'm still very much a student, very much learning and growing and stuff.
Jessica is at, so going into the questions, like you're talking about now, she's asking how you started with your spiritual gifts. And so like, as things started to unfold, what started to happen for you? Because you talked about the Kundalini energy was intense. You started seeing colors. You started, hearing and knowing information from the other side coming into your readings. What was that like, and how did you start with that?
I mean, it was exciting at the time. It's like a new gift, like new self-discovery. So all these changes were really exciting, a little daunting, it's like more responsibility. I think at some point or another, I really had to address my own programming, because I grew up and had very significant like social anxiety and stuff like that. And speaking of like things that happen, and New Year's Eve in 2019, I do my ceremony. Spirit came through and told me to start a YouTube channel. Now, and I did, but understand that I was, basically sucked on camera. I mean, I've gotten better since then, obviously. Very nervous, very self-conscious, very fidgety. And I was like, are you crazy? Me go on camera? They said there'll be a need for it. I mean, I didn't know a pandemic was coming. So I did a lot of subconscious reprogramming. I've been doing that very consistently for different things for a while now. In other words, like, if we have issues, it's because we're programmed to have issues. Our subconscious is like a computer hard drive, and either society programs that hard drive through the power of repetition, or we program ourselves. And for whatever reason, I grew up very, very nervous, very sensitive, very empathic. Not really in my body so much, not really in my root, much more in my upper chakras, and very nervous on camera. So I made up a sleep program. I did affirmations every day. I practiced. I did 1 hour. I started in February with 1 hour, 1 minute videos on Instagram. The first one took me almost 2 hours to do it. That's now I can do like a 10-minute video. I can bump that out off in an hour now. And then in June, in the summer solstice, I started the Medium channel. That's the name of the YouTube channel. And we dive into spirituality, like I call it, it's the Medium channel, but the slogan or byline is the spirituality behind the message. So I kind of dive into, aspects of my own spiritual practice as it pertains to my mediumship and stuff like that. So so that's, I don't know if I answered the question or if I went off on another tangent. I hope I answered your question.
You were definitely you previously were just in flow of that, and then you extended it. So absolutely. And speaking of that, like teaching energy, someone else asks Tamara, I'm pretty intuitive, not psychic, but I have wanted to practice positive energy work like healing. I have heard that you're either born with it or you're not. Is there any truth to that?
Yes, there is. We're all born with it. That's the truth of it. Some more than others. Just like anybody that has a voice box can learn how to sing, but not everybody's going to be the next Freddie Mercury. You see, so there's always different levels of skill and ability. But you already are a healer. If you can feel and channel energy with your intention, you can heal, because that's what happened. We become energy channels, and we help the person that we're healing energy fields help their spirit to heal themselves. Like, we don't heal people, God heals, and we become the instruments for that healing, basically, like the conduits. So humans are very attuned to being able to so we say, like, magnify and adjust frequency, and through our intention and our thoughts and intentions, mostly our emotions and intentions. That's what I meant to say. Through our feeling. So, so yeah. That people say that about mediums. I tell them, I could pretty much take anybody and make them a medium. Give me 5 hours and they can get messages. Again, they may not be the next, John Edward or what's his name, Gordon Higginson, but but certainly they can get messages. And I even had a weekend seminar years ago where this man who was basically I think it's only 6 weeks out of recovery. He was like in his 50s and an alcoholic his whole life. And by the end of the seminar, he I had them all, I got a group, I had them all do messages, and he got the person's name and got some information. And he pulled me aside after and said, wow, I thought I was making that up. And I was like, see, what did I tell you? Make it up. Just be in your spirit mind. Don't be in your ego, because then you're really making it up. And if you're in your presence and in your power, making something up, just telling spirit, give me the answer already. It's setting the intention, basically. So anyway.
It's true. Like when you are, I would say, like, starting, or loosen up your mind, like you need to have that flexibility of imagination. And so,
Yeah.
like for some people, it's funny, because the reason I'm even talking about this, because some people are skeptical, or let's say they're not quite sure of this work. If they heard the lines, oh, just make it up, but it's not that at all. It's just an
No, it's
exercise for
not. Yeah.
imagination. Yeah, it's just, yeah. And it's a perfect exercise, because the mind doesn't really work in this work. It's funny like that. She's also talking about, she says, when she enters a room, it's easy to tell if there's a tension in there. I
Yeah.
feel is she's like, let me read this again, excuse me. When entering a tense room, it's easy to tell that the tension I feel is outward, but how can I differentiate my feelings from others when the energy is more subtle from people who internalize emotions? I think she's talking about not her empathetic nature is absorbing the energy of a room, right? And how does she not absorb what's in the room?
So, firstly, I'd say the first step: don't resist. I think what we resist persists. So don't resist. Go ahead and feel the energy, but at the same time, be grounded. And I think that's the real key that people are missing. I live in the northeast woodlands. When there's a storm, white pines go down because they have shallow root systems, but the birches stand because they have deep root systems. So get your roots deep. That way you can feel and you can be empathetic or empathic, but not be overwhelmed by other people's energy. Like, being able to feel is a gift. It's not a curse. But sometimes, we don't think that we feel aren't that pleasant. There's also ways of clearing energy. There's also ways of shielding. If you need to be shielded, if you're around a lot of toxic energy, you can, in your mind, create a circle of energy around you. Violet, purple light works well for me. Gold light, white light. There's different techniques, but it's all the intention. It's all the feeling. Know that you are powerful. Nobody living or likewise is more powerful than you are, because we all draw from the same power source. And I think people are programmed to fear what they don't understand, or like ghosts, for example, or all the problems in government and the lies and all that. People fear because they don't understand it. So understand that fear is just a survival instinct. It's okay to fear. Just don't let it control you, basically. And so yeah, that would be the advice I would give, anyways.
She's talking about how she'll feel the energy from the room, and also that she'll feel the energy of people who are internalizing their emotions.
Yeah.
So she's talking about that, and then she talks about how do I sit in my heart chakra without it being so emotional.
Sometimes people just have to go through it. Sometimes it's our own emotions that are suppressed that start to come out, and we see it on the outside before we see it on the inside. It's like, what are we attracting habitually, is a clue. So sometimes you have to sit with it, but if you can really be in the heart frequency and in the power, then it's going to be okay. Yeah. And you can always call on whoever, whatever you see is protective, Archangel Michael, Jesus, Buddha. You can always call on. We have our helpers, we have our guides also. And that's what they're for. They're not going to do the work for us. They're not going to give us the answers. They're going to guide us to find our own answers. They're going to support us in our own work, and give us an idea of how to do that and how to go forward with that. So, be empathic and open, but ask them, not, maybe to tone it down a little bit, or just ground yourself. But you're meant to feel things, and do some grounding. There's an exercise I teach, one of my shadow integration exercises, where you gaze in a candle, and then when you get that gaze fixed, imagine that you're inside that candle and the flames are around you and they're protecting you from lower frequencies. Fires are very active and energetic, and this is keeping you more in your own frame. So a lot of us needed to be very empathic and psychic growing up, because we had crazy parents, or we had to navigate the adults to stay safe. It became a survival instinct. But it's the sacrifice of groundedness. So a lot of people are very empathic, they're very psychic, but they're not grounded, so they feel too much. It has to be in balance. You don't want to sacrifice the feeling, but the ability to feel, but we do want it to be in balance, and all your chakras to be aligned. So work with your root, work with the heart, and like I said, heart brain coherence, I think, can cure just about anything, by the way.
You're talking about, like, we are meant to feel. That's what you said. That's one of the first things you said. We are meant to feel.
That's the human experience. Yeah, that's how we relate to energy. Energy is a frequency, and it's energy emotion. That's what emotions are. So the way it registers in the human experience is it triggers the hormonal response in the body. So basically, emotions are hormones in the body. They're chemicals, they're drugs, they're addictive also. If you wonder why people just don't seem to get it, or why they make the same mistake over and over again and go through the same troubled emotional situation over and over again, they don't realize that they're addicted to those chemicals. They're addicted to those emotions. So
all the patterns within us.
yeah.
Another question someone is sharing is, do we work for our manifestations, or does spirit know when we are ready? Are they the ones that grant us the manifestation? Someone asks.
Good question. And I think it's kind of a yes to both accounts, I want to say. But I feel like learning how to consciously manifest is one of the most important lessons we'll ever learn as spirits having human experiences. There's a reason we want to be happy and joyful and want to have nice things in life. It brings us closer to God, or closer to spirit. The word desire comes from desire, like of the Father, of God. So having want and need, we just create more want and need. But it happens through our intentions, but it also happens through the interaction of spirit. So things have to happen in their right time, in the right timelines, in the right space. And that's where astrology and numerology can be very useful, to know when is it time to pull back, when is it time to really go full steam ahead in our law of attraction, when is it time to act, when is it time to not act. So I think the working with law of attraction is a multifaceted ability that starts with intuition. It starts with our relationship with God and spirit, and knowing that we have the ability, that everything's energy. We have the ability to create and manifest anything we desire that's within physical law, and even sometimes that's not in physical law. And with the new science, they're finding that our emotions, our intentions change the quantums, like it changes quantum reality, like subatomic reality. Also, Dr. Emoto showed this in the water experiments, how our intentions, if you bring water to the exact specs when it comes to temperature and pressure, that your emotions will change the way the crystals form in the water. Happy emotions are symmetrical. Unhappy ones are very jagged, and negative ones are very jagged. So that's basically how the energy works. So I kind of got lost in my train of thought talking about Dr. Emoto. Sorry about that, but I think that you understand that. So yeah, okay, my train of thought is back. So whatever happens on a subatomic or quantum level, it's going to happen on a macro level. There's just the illusion of time. So like I healed lifelong disease using law of attraction techniques. I made the reality in my mind of wellness more real than the physical reality. I did affirmations. I did it. I had severe chronic eczema that was so bad that the chief dermatologist at NYU Hospital told me I had the worst case of eczema he'd ever seen. Required steroids every day for almost 60 years. It's by age 60, I finally had overcome that, and I haven't needed steroids for 4 years. But it took me 3 years, to do this. We get programmed through the power of repetition. That happens over years, and then people do a month of affirmation, and then they're like, this crap doesn't work, and then they give up. Basically, it's like, well, it took you your whole life to get programmed and to have the frequency that you have now. And you think, one day it could all change. There's no limitations, but usually it's going to take longer than a month. I'm sorry to say. And but it's all energy, it's all intention. As you shift your vibration, it's going to change the energy around you. And the emotion, the energy emotion is the key. And gratitude's the master frequency, or linked to with the master frequency. This according to a lot of teachers. I want to cite Dr. Teresa Bullard, founder of the Mystery Teaching Schools. And she talks a lot about that gratitude's the master frequency. And when you can be genuinely grateful for an event or an outcome in your life that hasn't physically happened, you set the energy in motion to create it. And if you can be present in that and really feel like it's already happening, it's going to happen. It may take a day, it may take a few years, but it's going to happen. So I think
if I remember correctly too, like you actually helped heal your back. You were going through some back issues. It was a while on Facebook. I remember reading it was like pretty extreme. You avoided like surgery. And then after, I want to talk about that, but then someone's actually asking about when the next solar event is. So that will be our final question. So we'll go into that in a second, but please, share that story.
Okay. So I have scoliosis. It's not severe. I've been athletic my whole life, even now at 64. And I have I don't know what the technical name is, but one of my vertebrae is inverted. I was born with that. And every now and then my back would go out, and it would be very painful. It would make the whole glute get inflamed, and it used to take in the beginning it took me 2 weeks. When I learned how to cultivate my chi, so I do a lot of yoga, tai chi, and I do energy channeling too and healing. This is before I was doing that, but I knew how to feel energy, and I knew how to almost like visualizing a magnifying glass and focusing my whole auric energy in one little area of my back. And 2 weeks of healing became 3 days. I could get out of bed in 3 days rather than 2 weeks doing that. Now, I'm older. That doesn't work as well anymore. I've been having the last year on and off back issues, but and the last time it just wasn't working, and so I got ultrasound from the chiropractor, and that between that healed it. Now it went out, well, not out, but it's gotten worse again, but it's gotten better over the last few days. So I just sit, I send energy, I visualize again. My back is straight. It's not crooked. I don't have scoliosis. When I'm doing my work, my back is straight. It's perfect. There's no stress on my nerves, because there's a little bit of sciatica involved with it. There's no inflammation in the muscles around it. My back is perfect. And when I'm doing my work, that's my reality. Nothing else is real in my mind. And again, if you can make that more real, and it doesn't have to be more than half the time, because of course we're living our life. We can't meditate 24/7, and we can't visualize 24/7. And then we get caught up in our old patterns and our negative thoughts or whatever. But it doesn't have to be like half. It just has to be a fraction of the time and energy. If you really focus on it, it's going to start to shift. So I'm hoping that I won't need the chiropractor this time. It's actually in the last week, it's improved a lot, knock on wood. But that's how I healed it, by focusing energy and intention and mind over matter.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you look very vibrant. That's why I actually wanted you to talk about it, because your energy looks so good. I was like, oh, talk about it, because you just have healing energy all around you. It's lovely to
I'm
see.
wearing blue today too, so I'm wearing a healing color also.
The blue is very nice. The blue is very nice. What'd you
Okay,
say?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just saying in numerology, I'm in my 21 year that reduces to 3, which is Jupiter rule. And blue is one of the colors. So it's growth and expansion. So I'm working this because I just came out of my 20 year, which is the judgment, or the judgment card in tarot. So 20 years can be very tough, but they're spiritual. But 21 is the world card. So that's like fruits of your labor. That's growth and expansion. So I'm working, and of course, this is a public appearance. I'm here, so I'm working the energy that way also. Yeah, but I'll have my bad moments, and admittingly, frustration is one of the things I'm really working on, because that's anger. That's a very tough emotion. We need to learn how to step back and observe our reactions rather than be our reactions. I sound like Joe Dispenza right now saying that, because that's one of his bylines, but it's true. Good luck. If you're angry, good luck trying to squash that. I'd have better luck sticking my hand out with the train moving 70 miles an hour than stopping those emotions. But I can step back and observe the anger, and then I can diffuse it much more quickly, and I can go back into my heart rather than hold on for days or whatever. So, anyways, so I think
The energy. I mean, you can see just beautiful moving energy all around you. So that's just.
I do a lot of spiritual work, a lot of healing, and a lot of joy, conscious joy. I do a lot of that. And I think in order to be a teacher in this time, you really need that, because there's just so much, and yeah, I'm pretty sure you do readings also, but you may notice the trend. People are more desperate, they're more needy, and we need to be, able to help them, but not at the expense of our own well-being. So we have to learn how to say no also, because when we say yes, when we really want to say no, it's just saying no to ourselves. It's basically what's happening when we do that. So we have to learn to have our boundaries and everything, but compassionately, and understand people are going through so much, and I'm finding people are forgetting their appointments, and I have a wait list, so it kind of screws everybody up, and I have to cut them a little slack now, and I'll say, well, you have to pay anyway, and I'm kind of like, well, all right, next time do a little better, but you get that. So I think that's really it. I do a lot of spiritual work. I have a morning routine that spans about 2 to 3 hours before I even start my day serving spirit. It involves meditation, breathing, supernatural breathing from Joe Dispenza. You can tell I like his work. Meditation, cold showers, which is also, well, that's Wim Hof. That's not Joe Dispenza so much, but also Kundalini yoga, and then the shaman that I work with from Machu Picchu told me that to take cold showers, and that was good to clear the spirits and everything, and a good thing to do in the mornings. So I do 3 minutes, and in late October in the Catskills, cold showers are having a whole new meaning than they did in July. I'll put it to you that way. And come February, it's like snow melt.
Well, I'm a big fan of I talk about salt and showers. You know, just like
Yeah,
cleansing and moving the water energy. Just
absolutely. Yeah.
you feel back to yourself. If I may ask, so what's the best way for people to find you? And do you have any classes going on where if someone
Okay.
wanted to, dive on in with you?
Okay. Best way to find me is my website. That is adambetweentheworlds.com. So that's the website. Um, Now I do a lot on YouTube. I do a lot of free teaching there, and free mediumship from time to time also. That's the Medium channel. So you can, if you're interested, you can check it out, and if it resonates, be part of the community there. So, and then Facebook, it's Facebook Medium Adam Bernstein, or Instagram Medium Adam Bernstein. Now you see classes. What do I have coming up class wise? I mean, I do channeling through YouTube. I don't think I have any classes scheduled right now. I just did one. Um, do I have any?
You got to put another one in before the year's up. Maybe that's your sign.
Yeah, maybe that's my sign. Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of like 30 plus trainings on file on my website. They're only $11 each. So I have a lot of classes that I did during the pandemic where everybody was inside. And I saw like a third to a half of my income dissolving because my events were the lion's share of my work, and there were no more events. It's like thinking on my feet, teach on Zoom. So I was one of the first people to get on Zoom, and thank goodness I was able to make up not all of the difference, but enough that I could still send my boy to college, and I could still pay my rent and everything. So I made up a lot of the lost income anyways. So I don't have anything scheduled, but I definitely have events, and we have them in Kingston, New York, and I do Zoom events. I mean, on days at the 28th, I think I'm doing a mediumship on Zoom, but that's not really a class. That's messages.
Still something that someone can be a part of. A lot of people would
Yeah.
want.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a limit of 10, and we haven't put it out yet. As soon as we put it out, it's going to fill up. I can pretty much guarantee that. So you guys that are watching the show will have first dibs on that. So the email for information is info@adambetweentheworlds.com, because I don't think the event is even up on the website yet, which means I have to text Heather and tell her to get it up for us.
So there, yeah, see him demonstrate with a small groups reading. That would be amazing. And his YouTube channel, lots of content there. And Adam, what what is something you'd like to leave everybody with? I always give my guests the last word.
Okay.
What is something you'd like to share?
Well, just know that you're going to be okay. I want to say that's I was asking you what the first thing that pops in my head. Tell them that they're going to be okay. We are in for a bumpy ride. Stay in the heart. That's the eye of the storm. Try not to engage too much in the negativity. This is our time to heal right now. It's a very healing vibration at this time. Right up until the new moon. Now the new moon is Tuesday, so it's a week, and it's a solar eclipse. So we're starting the next eclipse season. Things get very charged during eclipse seasons. It's basically the full and the new moon line up with the lunar nodes. That's what creates an eclipse, and so there's that conjunction with those main players. So I think that's basically it, and that we're all healers, we're all psychics, we're all mystics, that we all have the abilities. This is our time to come into the next level, and it's all starts with meditation and presence. So if I have to leave like one word of wisdom, practice presence. And I do it the way Eckhart Tolle teaches in The Power of Now, that every time the thought comes up to be present, stop your thoughts. We have 65,000 thoughts per day, right? According to psychologists. 95% subconscious, and pretty much all of them from the past. And every thought has an emotional charge. So when we have subconscious thoughts, we're subconsciously taking the past and the present, but the mind also creates the future. So until we become present and aware, we're creating our futures based on our past patterns and programs and suppressed traumas and negative programming, all that stuff. So learn presence the way he teaches it. Just every time you think about it, stop your thoughts, be aware of your breath, feel your body, the space around your body, be aware of everything, focus on nothing, and just stay in that state till something takes you out of it. Then do the same thing again and develop it that way. That in complement with a meditation practice where you can build up to at least 20 minutes of meditation. If you're not a meditator and you get anxious, start small and slowly build up. Otherwise, you'll never do it. You'll just get too psyched out. I tell people start with 2 minutes if you're the type that gets anxious. Because what happens when we meditate? We still our mind. We dissolve some of the filters to be subconscious and conscious. When subconscious traumas rise to the surface, we feel anxiety. We are programmed to avoid pain at all costs. It's like, I don't want to meditate. I want a cigarette, or I want to drink, or I want to ballet. So start small, basically, but practice that. You're worth it. You deserve it. And when you start to lock into your higher power, things are going to change in your life. That's where the healing begins. That's where the shift begins. So that's my final thought. I hope it was a good enough one.
Oh, it was amazing. Meditation and presence, and to, this whole show we've been talking about is just, it's good to feel, right? It's good to feel.
The underlying, it's good to feel. In fact, it's our human right to feel. And unfortunately, when people open up more often than not, they feel the crummy stuff before the good stuff. And that's why it's hard. Most people stop feeling because they felt so much pain in their life. It's not your fault. So the other thing is, don't feel guilty or shameful. That's an even lower vibration, according to, what is it, the Hawkins emotional frequency scale? Am I getting that right? But
I know what
according
you're talking about, but I don't know how they scale exactly. I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah.
according to David Hawkins, Dr. Hawkins, anyways,
You want to steer into joy, I would say, or gratitude. We're talking about, gratitude we talked earlier.
yeah, guilt and shame are lower than even anger and fear.
Yes,
So
that's
don't
true.
feel guilty or shameful if you're having a hard time meditating, or if you don't feel like you're where you want to be, or whatever. First step, don't feel guilty or shameful. It's really hard to change. We are constructed, the subconscious mind is constructed to gravitate towards familiarity, because that's what our subconscious mind believes we need to survive. When things are unpredictable, we get anxiety, because think of our ancient ancestors. If something was different, that's probably because there was a storm coming in, or there were invaders, or a wild animal was coming in. So anxiety, it's just the body's response to a possible threat. It's like the stage before fight or flight. So when people start to open up and feel, very often that they'll feel the difficult emotions, and that's why people block it in the first place. So just don't feel guilty and shameful. And if you do feel anxiety, the thing is, step back and observe the emotion. Don't feed into it, and it'll pass if you allow it to speak. And you may even get a memory. You may get a memory where you were locked in a closet when you were 4 years old, and that's why you've had a hard time, like in relationships. You may get an insight that way of why that is. But when you start presence in meditation, just know that filter between conscious and subconscious starts to dissolve, and we start to, anxieties or other emotions like that may rise to the surface, but it's just things that are trying to be released, because we are programmed to fear, to avoid pain at all costs. So we suppress pain rather than allow ourselves to experience it. If we can just experience it, then we can be done with it and move on. But we suppress it, we try to avoid it. So
that's the next step, everybody. I want to say thank you for everybody who has come in with your questions and comments. So Jody, Math, Kelly, Sis, Tamara, Angela, Chris, and beyond. Thank you. And of course, thank you so much, Adam Bernstein. Please check him out. He's so wonderful. After this. And thank you once again. And everybody, please, with the notion of just love, luck, and life, and joy, and don't forget to live. We will see you next week. Thank you again, Adam. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
The truth is here and now on WLTKDB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.